Hey guys, it's Vampire Mike from Sega CD Universe. Wanted to do a quick video talking about Shenmue 2. So I know I had previously spoken about the Shenmue 1 and 2 HD collection for the Xbox. It's also out for the PlayStation 4 and the PC. I don't have a PS4, and I know the third game is supposed to be coming out eventually to the PS4. I'm still of the mindset that it may come out on the PS5, and that it may just be a timed release, but that might just be wishful thinking on my part, because I tend to purchase Microsoft family products. So I just beat Shenmue 2 again, and I say again because I had beaten it prior on the original Xbox, back when it came out in, I'm going to take a guess, 2002? Because if the first game came out in 2000, maybe 2001, 2002, something like that. I remember it had come out on the Dreamcast in Europe, and they canceled the American version. Europe and Japan, I believe, got it. And a lot of people imported the PAL version of Shenmue 2 on their Dreamcast, which I'm also guilty of. I eventually purchased it, I think twice. I think I had it once, sold it, and then rebought it years later when I repurchased the Dreamcast. So I did play it on my original Xbox. I enjoyed it, but don't remember it very well. I remember 1 better. So I just went back and completed 2 last night. Excuse me. And I enjoyed it. I think there are a couple things that irk me about the game that I don't think will hold up well if they transition to a third game. Some of those things being, well, let me explain the story really briefly if no one has played the Shenmue series. So, in the first game, your father gets killed, and you're trying to figure out who killed your father and why, and you go on a quest to find the person to get revenge. This is pretty much a continuation of that. So in the first game, you're in Japan, that's where you're from. In the second game, you go to China because you're following the guy who killed your dad. That's the gist of it. I don't want to give away too much or say too much or whatnot. One of the funny aspects of the Shenmue series has been that the voiceover work is very, very dry and silly in a way. I don't think it's intentional, it's just the way it is. So, people will talk to your main character, Ryo Hazuki, and he responds very cold, very flat, and disinterested sounding. So, throughout the game, you meet these people that befriend you, and this is in both games, but more in the second one it was noticeable, I would say. People befriend you for like no apparent reason, and you're just kind of an ass. Like, you're not particularly kind to these people. You usually don't say hello or goodbye. You're not thanking them for doing things for you. You're just like, okay, now what? Like, very dry, and it just doesn't mesh well. It seems like every character is just a set piece that sort of helps you and guides you to the next destination, but you're not really, and this is in both games, but I'm focusing on 2 currently, and you're not really very warm to them. You don't even, like, I almost wondered at points how he has these bonds with these people. One of the characters' name is Ren. I believe he's on the cover. Yeah, he's this guy in blue here. You know, and then there's this, well, the other girl's not even on the cover. There's this girl named Joy who follows you around with a motorcycle and supposed to be like a badass. Like, she follows you around and she shows up and people kind of, you know, kowtow to her or whatever. And she helps you, and you never seem appreciative. Your character just doesn't really thank her very much, seems very thankless, cold, hardly answers her, walks away when she speaks, like extremely rude. He's just, I guess they're trying to show that he's just focused on revenge and finding the man who killed his dad. That's the only thing I can think of, because otherwise it's just, he's completely not likable, at least in the second game. I mean, the first game, he starts off, he's sort of likable, I guess, but, so anyway, there's that. The other thing I wanted to make mention of is, and this is in both games, but the second one I felt was way more drastic in this way. It's a bit monotonous. You're playing, and there's near the end, middle to the end of the game, there's this building you go up, and each floor has guys popping out on you, and you have to do quick time events to stop them from fighting you. quick time events are like when a button pops up on the screen, you have to push it fast, and if you don't push it in time, then you lose. But if you push it quickly, you win. Like the old Sega CD games, which is why I like this. Like Sewer Shark and Wirehead, and all the other, Cayman Rider or Common Rider, Zoe or whatever it's called, Zeta-O. So anyhow, that's really monotonous and annoying by the middle to the end of the game. There was also this fight that was really, really tough that took me about 3 tries with one of the main guys in the game. And after you beat the fight, you have to do 3 QuickTime events in a row. And they just get progressively a little longer. And by the end of it, if you mess up one button, that's it. You have to start the whole fight over. So stuff like that, I hope coming into the 3rd game, they really, hone in on the way games are now in some facet. Not fully, but just, I like the old school feel, but I want them to adjust it just to have a little bit more of a welcomeness to certain aspects. The other thing that they did add to this game that is not in the first one that I thought was good was when you have to be somewhere at a certain time, if you go there, it says, or whatever, it says, would you like to wait? And you can click wait, and it waits the timeout, as opposed to actually you walking around doing nothing and waiting the timeout. The first game had lots of dead air where you would be like, all right, I have to go somewhere at noon, and then you'd have 10 hours, so you'd walk around and buy capsule toys and play Super Hang-On, I don't know. So, I also found the quaintness of the first game a lot better. I felt like you're in this small town. It can be a little confusing initially with the layouts, but people know you and they talk to you. Since you're in the second game, you're in a faraway land. Nobody knows you, nobody cares. Everyone's kind of trying to get one over on you. And there's just a coldness to it. Again, not just with the characters, but just the whole feeling, which they may have been going for that because you are in a distant land without any, friends or knowledge of the place. I would say the graphics got better. That might just be because, I'm playing it on the Xbox One and it's a 20-year, 15 or 18-year-old game, and that it, has now been souped up a little bit, but I think the graphics are pretty good. Some of the what's the word I'm looking for? Not palettes. Whatever. Some of the background designs, I can't think of the word. You can see like blurriness if you get close, or it's not like the best. This isn't like particularly a remaster, as I think it is. I think it's a port with just slight upgrades. They seem to have patched out all the bugs. I really didn't encounter any. I encountered one twice, but it may have been, I think, what I was doing. I was streaming it at points from my Xbox to my computer and playing it on the computer while watching a movie. So I had lost sound, background sound, not voiceovers, just background sound a couple times. So I had either exited the game and went back, or just stopped the stream and then went back in and started streaming and it picked up. So that may have just been the streaming aspect. I'm not quite sure. It's definitely felt longer than the first game. It definitely felt more arduous than the first game. There are some good characters that I don't know if they're going to build off of, because by the end of this game, those characters aren't around again. You do find more out, and it does take a strange turn by the end of the game, but it's a huge cliffhanger. There's not much of a payoff with the Shenmue series yet, because they expect to do like 7 more of them or something, or 8 more of them or something. I think it was like 9 in total, so it would have been 7 more of them. And then it got stopped after 2. So I don't know if Yu Suzuki is going to cram in a few in the next game and see how it does, or all of them in the next game, because this is it. Like, he knows I have to make a truncated version of this to finish it off, because I may not get the chance, which I think is probably the smartest idea. I don't know if they keep a lot of these elements, how well it's going to translate for a younger audience. I think you're going to get people that go, what's Shenmue? Oh, you really like it? Okay, I'll pick it up. And some of them will love it, and some of them will be very disappointed. I think it's going to be a 50-50 toss-up. I also think that you'll get a lot of, people like me who grew up playing Shenmue 1 and Shenmue 2, and they're going to want to go back and play these, and then also play 3. So that's good too. I'm trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to speak about. I know I sound like I'm knocking the game a lot. I think I just felt like the first game aged a little better. Maybe not in terms of graphics and maybe not in terms of variety, but it just felt a little more, I don't know. Maybe back then when it came out and when I replayed it recently, it felt fresher. Where when you play the second one, it feels like a lot of the same old stuff with just some tweaks. I feel like I wanted to say something else. I keep teasing my wife because at the end of the game you meet this girl Shenmue, and like this is another irksome thing for me. You meet this young girl. She's supposed to be a couple years younger than you. She's 16, I think you're 18 in the game. And you're walking through the woods and doing quick time events, jumping over trees and dodging rocks. And it's okay the first few times, but it goes on way too long. And by the end of it, I was just going into the dialogue and telling her to hurry up and just skipping what she was saying. Like, because by the end of it, the element of like, I want to get to know this girl, what's going on, I just lost it. I didn't really care anymore. So every few seconds you'd hear her like, hey Rhea, and then like it would chop off, and then he'd answer her, but I would chop that off, and you'd hear like partial sentences, and then he'd just go, hey Shenmue, hey Shenmue, hey Shenmue. So I'd be like, oh my god. So I keep teasing my wife, like, I was like, hey Shenmue, you gonna do the dishes this morning? Hey Shenmue, what are you having for breakfast? Like I just keep teasing her. She's probably like, oh my god, I wish he didn't play this game. Yeah, overall I would say if you loved one, you'll probably enjoy two. I think the tweaks they made were... Oh, sorry about that, guys. I think the tweaks they made were definitely welcome. There was a lot of monotony and a lot of old-fashioned gameplay that they need to change for a new audience with Shenmue 3, because I think otherwise they're just going to get an old audience. Some of the game did feel like I was trudging along and had to get through parts, especially in the Ghost Hall building at the end of the game. When you're walking across these beams and you're falling off beams and you have to do quick time events. The other thing I meant to mention, and this is I guess also a negative, definitely a negative, I would push a button and it wouldn't register. So I don't know if something's wrong with my controller, if the game is extremely sensitive and you have like a split second to push something, and if you miss that split second window, there was many times it was like right X and I pushed right X fast. And it would go, I die and fall off the ledge, and I'm like, are you serious? So I don't know. I think some of the programming is a little off, to be completely honest, in the QuickTime events, because I was doing exactly what it said, slow, fast, whatever. Then I go back and do it again, and it would work. So I just feel some of it needs to be fine-tuned, or should have been fine-tuned. It was definitely interesting going to China in this game and seeing, new stuff in a new area. When you, like I said, when you played the first one, you're only in Japan and you're in a smaller kind of section. This section of the game in China can be very confusing, though, when you're walking around. The town is very difficult to remember where things are and navigate, at least for me. And yeah, that's about it. You get a little more story, you get some more mystical type stuff coming out, and information about your dad, and information about Londi, who was the man who killed your dad. And so you meet some people that knew your father and they talk about him. But even that, that's very cold and stuff. So, yeah, that's about it. It was a pretty good game. I enjoyed it. I don't think I'd go back anytime soon and play it again. And I remember having that feeling after I beat it initially. So, thanks guys for watching. It's Vampire Mike from Sega CD Universe. Be good.